So right now between Russia and the West, Russia and the United States, it's quite dangerous times, actually, with a big risk of escalation. How big do you think that risk is? Because we've had the United States now allowing the Ukrainians to use ATACMS missiles to fire deep into Russia, and the Russians answer with Oreshnik.
You are right. Risks are high and they're growing. That's quite disturbing. We haven't experienced anything like that any time in the past, nor in the heights of the Cold War. And I wouldn't say there are any magic solution for it. I believe we have a great lack of restraint on the part of the West, US in particular, where people seemingly underestimate our resolve to defend our interests and defend our core national security interest, as we have shown it throughout the special military operation that started February 2022.
So how far are you willing to go? Because, I mean, de facto, the Oreshnik missile is a strategic, very nuclear capable ballistic missile that you fired over Ukrainian city.
Oreshnik is not a strategic ballistic missile. It's an intermediate range missile which was tested in combat, and the results are known for people in Kiev, for people in Washington, in Brussels, and of course in Moscow. We used this as not just a messenger of a sense, but we use this to test what we really have in terms of our growing and additional capabilities in this very crucial area. Let me tell you that if not for the Trump 1 administration that simply destroyed INF Treaty, which served well interests of both US and Russia for several decades, then there would be no Oreshnik in our hands. We will still be restrained from our capability to develop such weapons, but okay, it's gone, and now we have what we have. We do not complain about missed opportunities. We look forward. We are very sure that we will reach all our goals and objectives through our action on the ground, and all the objectives of the special military operation will be achieved.
You've said that, you just said, that the West underestimates Russia's propensity and willingness to go through with its strategic goals. The Russian president has said that the use of ATACMS missiles to strike into Russia changes the very nature of the conflict to one that is between Russia and the West, Russia and the United States. How big of a danger are we of getting into a nuclear escalation?
Depends on what people decide and how they assess the situation in Washington. Well, I'm not trying to enter into any blame game here, but what is disturbing is a very obvious inability of these people, contrary to what was the case at all times, I would say, in the past, their ability to truly appreciate that Moscow is not someone or something that could be pressurized indefinitely. There will come a moment when we will see no other way, no other choice, but to resort to even stronger military means. I wouldn't suggest that it will happen right away. I wouldn't even suggest that we have anything but what was publicized some days ago in terms of our reviewed nuclear doctrine, which showed that we draw lessons from what's going on in and around Ukraine. But the trend is there. And, you know, in NATO, there are a group of people, I would even call them cheerleaders, that stand there and clap and shout and just want big boys in the field to go into this game further and further. They will be defeated, like US was defeated by Soviet Union in basketball in 1973.
What does defeat mean then? I mean, do you think that right now, as far as escalation is concerned, are we in a more precarious place than, for instance, during the Cuban Missile Crisis?
Different from that time. Danger of nuclear disaster and nuclear apocalypse at that moment was more acute. But today, I think danger of this scenario unfolding should not be underestimated by anyone. We have no comparison, we have no roadmaps, we have no routines, we have no culture of how to manage this type of situation. And absence of common sense in many places, absence of sober analysis in different offices in the West is so alarming. We have not lost our senses. We know what we are talking about. This is something that is clearly a historic moment for everyone, and we will not let us be provoked into anything. But again, our stamina, our strong will to defend our interests with all means is there, and it's unwavered and unshaken, irrespective of how many billions of dollars will be burnt in this conflict by the US, irrespective of what people at the European Union believe they should do to support Kiev, to assist US. We will prevail there, no doubt.
That's obviously leads to the next question. What do you think is the key factor in Russia's view of the Ukraine conflict, of the Ukraine question, that Western leaders fail to understand about your position?
A simple answer to this very important question on my part would be the Western leaders completely reject the background. If they would appreciate that we had no other way, no other choice but to resort to force on the 24th of February 2022, given what happened before, since 2014 and until 2022, it was an ongoing deterioration of the situation of Russians and Russian-speaking people in Ukraine. It was an upswing of neo-Nazi sentiments, including in the government of that country, which came to power through an illegitimate coup d'etat. It's completely rejected by the West. They proclaim that this is Russian propaganda. The moment they begin to understand what brought us into this tragic situation where there was no other choice, I think chances for a better solution, a more reasonable scenario will grow.
The way to walk back from that appears to be peace talks. How possible do you think peace talks are, and which areas is Russia willing to compromise in if peace talks happen?
We have laid out our position through presidential statement of June 14th. We know what Zelensky produces in terms of his plans and his suggestions. If you compare the two positions, they are seemingly incompatible, then cannot be brought together. Thus, I believe chances for a compromise at the moment are zero. The moment people in Kyiv begin to understand that there is no way that Russia will go the way they suggest, I think there might be openings and opportunities. I will tell you that over recent years, a number of countries came up with several ideas on how to move political dialogue forward. We are very attentive to these ideas. We engage these countries at all levels. We also have points where we criticize them, including our closest friends like China and Chinese-Brazilian group of friends is something that we closely watch, although we believe there are deficiencies with this approach. So we not foreclose anything, but at the moment to compromise along the lines which the West and Kyiv believe is the way forward, chances for this are zero. The first point of order, the first The first action that should be taken by Washington, in my view, should be a very strong message to Kyiv that they should lift a prohibition that was self-imposed to have direct contacts with Russia. This would be the right beginning.
Zelensky recently said that, or hinted, that Ukraine would be willing to give up some of the territories that you currently hold in return for full NATO membership.
Full NATO membership is a non-starter. This is one of the reasons why Russia began this special military operation. I mean, it's not so that we have here a situation of land for peace. If we parallel this with the Middle East or somewhere else, that's not the point. We have a very clear position, a position of principle, where we have our historic territories, people of Russia, Russian-speaking people developing these territories. They didn't want to live under the neo-Nazi regime in Kyiv. They came through referenda. They observed all the democratic procedures. All this happened within the internationally recognized principle of self-determination of people. We have all this before the whole world, laid out through multiple statements of our leaders, our diplomats, our politicians. This is not about, achieving some imperial goals. This is something where we believe we have our core interests endangered, and we have no other way but to defend them through military means.
Do you think that the Trump administration will follow through on its pledge, or Donald Trump will follow through on his pledge to try and solve the crisis as fast as possible?
We have never
or that he can?
We have never heard anything from him or his team directly. We only saw what was made public by some people in his entourage. We saw equally some statements by President-elect Trump from his electoral campaign time, when he said that he can resolve this issue in 24 hours. 24 hours was probably a word he used in order to attract additional sympathies among voters. Some conflicts cannot be even resolved in 24 years, as we see it in the Middle East. But I'm not suggesting anything otherwise than the moment when these people decide to come up with some ideas, we will be there. We will definitely have a very careful look. But please make no mistake, not at the expense of what are the basic elements of our national position.
How do you feel about some of his cabinet picks? Because some of them have also said that they believe that they need to solve this crisis. Elon Musk has said something, the incoming national security advisor has said so, and now the Trump administration is also going to appoint a special envoy for the Ukraine conflict.
And who would that would be?
Keith Kellogg, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The least thing I would do now is to give some characters to those people. Some of them are known for us, others are not. All of them are very interesting figures. Again, some of them do have experience internationally, others probably will look for something domestic more than anything else. We respectfully wait for the moment when the new administration will be installed, and then through official channels, depending on whether the US side would be ready to open up for these contacts, because currently we do not have much of a contact with the outgoing administration. It's also a self-imposed restriction, a similar kind like in Kiev Zelensky did for himself. I think it's a mistake, better to talk than not. We will surely analyze what would be the composition of the next national security team. And we will be very open for any contacts.
But are you hopeful that something could change after January 20th? Because it seems as though right now everything is moving towards further confrontation. A lot of people have said that the months between the US election and the new administration taking power in America is a very dangerous time for the Ukraine conflict and for the chance of escalation. And we have seen now in the past weeks, we've seen a lot of escalation take place.
My appeal and my message to people in the outgoing administration is a very clear one. We will respond if they provoke. We will find our way forward, how to assert our strong will and our interests. So I'm not threatening here anyone. I'm just it's a factual statement. I'm referring to what was the case all along. It's regretful that people kind of look apart and do not recognize that we, at this escalatory cycle, in this spiral of dangers, moving higher and higher, we have at no moment an opportunity to break and to see around and just to consider whether or not there are alternatives. So it's very uniform, one-sided, very dogmatic, very ideological policy towards Russia and Ukraine, which the outgoing Biden administration follows. It doesn't make any difference, though, in what we believe would be right for Russia to do. And then when the next administration comes, you asked about expectations or hopes. Look, we had a strange situation during Trump 1 when it was kind of a sense of different people coming, but policies towards Russia moved from bad to worse. Literally, he imposed many more sanctions than Obama did. He destroyed at least two very important arms control treaties. And some of his closest aides at that moment, they just advertised for this policy like something that makes everyone happier around in the world.
How much longer can Russia sustain this war? Because right now, you're on the move forward, but at the same time, you are losing a lot of people. A lot of people are being wounded, and I know there's no exact numbers. Ukraine side's losing a lot of people. And right now, a third of your national budget is going to go to defense and military spending.
Of course, CNN knows better what's the size of our budget and what's the number of our
It's official
losses.
Numbers, isn't it? They were put out. It was signed this weekend, wasn't it?
I would say it also shows that our people support the president and the government in what is a fight for Russia to stay strong, to stay independent, for a Russia that makes a difference in the world, and not just Russia that is subordinate to people in Washington and people in Brussels. It's much less about Kyiv, it's much more about US, NATO, and collective West, as we call it.
So it is a direct confrontation between Russia and the West, and sort of the idea of the Russian president for a new world order, as he said that himself, hasn't he? One where, for instance, BRICS becomes more important as a power center, as an economic center. And that could lead you on a direct confrontation course with Donald Trump as well, because he just said that if BRICS wants to replace the dollar with another world currency, that the US is going to fight that tooth and nail.
When the moment comes and President Trump is inaugurated, I think there would be opportunities to tell his people that we at BRICS do not want to replace dollar. We in BRICS want to develop a system that would allow us at BRICS to service what our economic operators need in parallel to what US and others may have. So it's a polyphonic world order, to use the word of President Putin from his Big Valdai presentation, not polycentric, not multipolar, but polyphonic, which is more modern. We modernize everywhere. Domination and monopoly, as some big names in Marxism taught once, is the direct way to distortion of the system. They give birth not to competition, but to gradual deterioration of the system. I think the monopolism which US tries to maintain and insert and impose everywhere is dangerous for US itself. Before it's too late, I urge sensible people in this country to consider this.
If talks don't happen, if things continue in this trajectory, what will it mean for Ukraine? What will it mean for Europe? What will it mean for Russia? Where does all this end if it's not stopped?
Let's see. I think one should not underestimate the chances for the worst possible outcome of this, even bigger conflict unfolding. On the other hand, we will do our utmost not to allow this to happen. We will be strong enough to defend all our interests, but we will not be the first to escalate. We will not be the first to do something that would mean we have now created a situation with point of no return past. But at the same time, if people on the other side do not recognize the situation as an extremely dangerous one and becoming even more dangerous by the week, if not by the day, then chances for this situation to become unmanageable will grow. I mean, usually military people, those who sit there, as we say it in Russian, close to the iron, they understand that it's very different from playing computer games. These days, those who learn something from their own service in combat or somewhere are probably in a very, very tiny minority in important places in Washington.
How bad is all this for Russia, though? Because, I mean, you said that Ukraine they're Slavic people, they're essentially brothers of the Russians, and yet so much of the country is being destroyed. And every day it's more.
It will be rebuilt. Come to Mariupol, see what is there. We are strong people. We are able to come together and show our strong will at the moments of great challenges. And one of these moments is right now. I think, but we want to explain where we are to everyone, to everyone. We do not want to sit there and just be, a group of people, allies, like-minded, whoever, neighbors, BRICS. We want to talk to the West as well, and we do so with those people who are open for it. We are ready.
This is going to be my final question, and I've waited till the end because I think it might be a longer answer. You said that the territory that you're fighting over right now in Ukraine, that's essentially the Russian heartland, that there were Russians who were wrong, that there Russian culture that's being marginalized, and that this land is intrinsically Russian, as you put it. Isn't that the root of the entire disastrous history of the past 2,000 years in Europe? That people have said, this land actually belongs to us, like the Germans did in the Sudetenland, that like the French and the Germans had. Isn't the fact that you talk about this history a step back into the days before we had the United Nations, before borders were recognized, before nation states became a thing. Because every single place in Europe, in the Middle East, many other places, has at one point belonged to someone else. But the question is, can you recognize a political entity and still recognize that minorities can exist in there? Do these lands have to belong to Russia?
Look, I don't want to give any parallels here with any historical situations in different places. What I wanted to say is we were also very humble, if you wish, politically, and we were also very restrained in terms of what we believed could or should be done to correct a situation that became more and more intolerable for our brothers there. It took many years of failed attempts to agree on something diplomatically, to observe some understandings that were achieved and reached, not least with direct involvement of the very same European powers you referred to when you said on their own history for 2,000 years. We did so not without recognition of negative effects it may produce, both for Russian standing of Russia internationally, and also for others that would use this opportunity to play a different game, if you wish. But this consideration was subordinate to something very different and very deep. And it's tragic, because, as I said, there was simply no other way. We do not want this to be a precursor, a beginning of some further terrible events in Europe. For surely not. Like, by the way, it's very, I would say, wrong and very disgusting when we hear now and then that Russia will not stop and it will attack NATO and so on and so forth. It's a rejection of what I exactly said a moment ago, of us being just wounded in the heart, if you wish, with this situation in places where currently there is combat.
Is it worth it, though?
Sorry?
Is it worth it? Is it worth hundreds of thousands of people dead? Is it worth all these sanctions?
You ask whether...
or isn't the price too high, is basically the question.
World War II, World War I, those who lost their lives there, was it worth it? Was it worth it? No one knows. For their families, probably not. For some of them. But they are national heroes for countries they fought for. And we have an extraordinary history of be heroes for our own country. Something like this happens these days. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.